Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. It all started with one of those casual late-night conversations that somehow turn into wild plans. My name's Al, and this story isn't just about a vacation. It's about what happens when friendship, trust, and curiosity collide under the sun-soaked skies of the Florida Keys. My girlfriend, Maddie, and I had been together for a little over 3 years. We were solid, comfortable, in sync, always laughing, always down for an adventure. So when Maddie's college best friend, Jess, invited us to join her and her boyfriend Nate for a week at a beachfront rental, we didn't even hesitate. We packed our bags, threw on our sunglasses, and headed south. From the moment we arrived, everything just clicked. The rental house was stunning, floor-to-ceiling glass windows, soft white sand just steps from the porch, and that warm ocean breeze that instantly makes you feel like anything is possible. Jess and Maddie picked up like no time had passed, and Nate? He was cool, laid back, and had that dry sense of humor that sneaks up on you. The four of us were like some kind of perfect vacation cocktail, equal parts chill, fun, and flirty tension that none of us wanted to acknowledge too soon. At first, everything felt exactly how it should. Days were filled with beach games, late breakfasts, and long drives with the top down. Nights turned deeper, board games turned into truth or dare, margaritas turned into confessions, and every glance started to carry a little more heat. No one said anything outright, but something was shifting. There was this strange and thrilling undercurrent that none of us could deny, even if we tried. Maddie and I caught each other watching Jess and Nate a little too closely. And every time someone brushed past the other, it left just a beat too long of a pause in the air. Then came the night that changed everything. We had grilled shrimp on the deck, the fire pit was crackling, and a full moon lit the water in soft silver. The conversation turned toward relationships, about what makes them last, about curiosity and honesty. And out of nowhere, Jess asked a question, half joking, half not, that none of us were really ready for. The kind of question that makes everyone go quiet for just a moment too long. A question that hung in the air like electricity. That night didn't end the way anyone expected. I won't spoil it all just yet. But what happened next tested our relationships in ways we never imagined. Boundaries blurred. Trust was put to the test. And love, real love, was either going to rise above it or fall apart completely. This wasn't just a vacation. It became the trip that redefined everything we thought we knew about each other, and ourselves. And just when I thought the story had settled, something happened the next morning that flipped it all again. Want to know what that was? Stay tuned. The next morning started off quiet, too quiet. I woke up before Maddie and stepped out onto the deck with my coffee. The ocean was calm, but my mind wasn't. I couldn't stop thinking about last night. The way Nate looked at Maddie when she laughed. The way Jess leaned into me during that truth or dare game. Nothing had technically happened, but everything felt different. Charged. Like the rules had been quietly rewritten while we were pretending nothing was changing. Later that day, the four of us took the boat out. We anchored in a quiet cove with crystal clear water and no other boats in sight. It should have been peaceful, Maddie in her white swimsuit, Jess lounging with her sunglasses on, Nate playing music from a waterproof speaker, but I felt like I was watching a movie in slow motion. Every glance between us felt loaded. Every smile was layered. We were still laughing, still talking like friends, but underneath it, something else was building. Maddie and Jess disappeared below deck for a while, supposedly to change. Nate and I sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the horizon. Then, casually, he asked, "Ever wonder if people are really honest in relationships? Like fully?" I wasn't sure how to answer, but it wasn't just a random question. He was hinting at something. Testing the waters. I nodded and said, "I think sometimes honesty's more complicated than people think." He looked at me with a half smile that said, "Exactly." When the girls came back, the tension only grew. Maddie was different, quieter. Jess kept touching Maddie's arm when she spoke, more affectionate than before. And then, at one point, when Maddie caught me watching her, she looked away fast, cheeks slightly flushed. It hit me then that maybe she was feeling the same thing I was, this confusion, this pull in two directions. We all were. Back at the house that evening, we cooked dinner together like everything was normal. But underneath the chopping, the music, and the laughter, it was all pretending. Something had started that none of us could name yet. Something that wasn't part of the plan. I didn't know what the next move was, or if there even was one. But I could feel it. This trip was going to change everything, and the craziest part? We hadn't even reached the halfway point yet. That night, after dinner, we all sat around the fire pit again. The heat from the flames was nothing compared to what was going on between us. I was trying to focus on the stars, the breeze, the sound of waves, anything but the looks Maddie kept stealing at Nate. I caught one once, soft, thoughtful, not the way she usually looked at friends. She noticed me noticing, and for a second, we both froze. Jess, sitting beside me, slowly leaned her head against my shoulder like she didn't feel the weight of what just passed between us. But I knew she did. We all did. This wasn't vacation vibes anymore. This was something deeper, messier. Later, Jess asked me to help her with the dishes inside. Maddie and Nate stayed by the fire. It should have been normal, just helping out, but Jess kept brushing against me as we moved through the tiny kitchen. Her voice was softer, her glances longer. "You've been quiet today," she said, handing me a glass to dry. I shrugged, trying to play it off. "Just thinking, I guess." She paused, then asked quietly, "Do you ever think about different paths? What life could look like if things were just a little different?" It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. Like she already knew I had. Like maybe she had, too. Outside, Maddie and Nate were laughing again. I looked through the window, saw the way her legs were crossed toward him, how his hand rested so close to hers it barely needed to move to close the distance. I wasn't mad. I was confused. Jealous, sure, but also curious. Like part of me wondered what Maddie was feeling, what this was turning into for her. And maybe for me too. The next morning, things were off. Maddie acted extra cheerful, like she was trying to overcompensate. Nate was quieter. Jess was all soft smiles and lingering touches. We went snorkeling that afternoon, and the water was perfect. But the air between us? Anything but clear. Underwater, there was this strange peace. But every time we surfaced, it was like stepping back into something unfinished. Something waiting to break open. That evening, Jess and I took a walk down the beach while Maddie and Nate stayed back to prep dinner. The sun was setting again, painting the sky in gold and orange. Jess walked close, her arm brushing mine. "Al," she said softly, "have you ever felt something coming, like a storm, but you don't know if you're supposed to stop it or let it happen?" I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. And I didn't know what Maddie and Nate were talking about back at the house, or what they were planning. All I knew was that this wasn't just a vacation anymore. It was a test. Of trust, temptation, and what love really means when the lines start to blur. And we were all walking the edge. That night, everything came to a slow boil. It started small. Nate handed Maddie a glass of wine, their fingers brushing just a second too long. Jess caught it, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. She didn't say anything, just glanced at me like we were both reading the same page of a book we weren't supposed to open. We were all pretending things were fine, that nothing had shifted. But every laugh, every word, every pause was wrapped in something unspoken. Dinner was quiet at first. Too quiet. The music was low, the lights dim, and all you could hear was the soft sound of silverware and waves crashing in the background. Then Jess broke the silence. So, has anyone here ever thought about trying something new? Something a little unexpected? Her voice was calm, but her question hit the table like a spark in dry grass. Maddie laughed nervously, taking a sip of wine. Nate raised an eyebrow, clearly interested but cautious. I didn't know where Jess was going with it, but I knew it wasn't random. She kept talking, like she had been thinking this through for days. I mean, we trust each other, right? We're all adults. Sometimes curiosity's just part of life. What if this vacation was more than just a getaway? What if it was a chance to be honest? Her eyes were locked on mine, and then briefly shifted to Maddie. That's when the air changed. Nate leaned back, slow and thoughtful. Maddie's smile faded, just a little. I felt my pulse in my ears. No one answered at first, because no one wanted to be the first to say out loud what we were all already feeling. But silence says a lot too. We finished dinner, but the tension didn't. Jess walked out to the beach alone, and I followed a few minutes later. Nate stayed inside. Maddie stood frozen by the sink, holding her wine glass like she wasn't sure whether to follow or hide. Outside, the sky was dark now. The stars were out. Jess stood barefoot in the sand, her arms wrapped around herself. We're right at the edge, she whispered when I reached her. And I don't know if we should take the step, or walk away. I didn't know either. But I knew one thing for sure, we couldn't go back to before. I stood next to Jess in the sand, both of us quiet, the only sound coming from the waves crashing in soft rhythm. The moon cast a glow on her face, and I could see she was trying to stay calm, but her fingers were trembling. Do you feel it too, Al? She finally asked, barely above a whisper. This whole trip, it's like it's pulling something out of us that we didn't even know was there. I nodded, unsure what to say. Because I did feel it. It wasn't just chemistry, it was confusion, fear, temptation all tangled together. But before I could answer, we heard voices behind us. Maddie and Nate. They had stepped outside too, but not separately. They were walking together, talking quietly, closer than before. And when they noticed us, something shifted in Maddie's face. She looked surprised, but not guilty, more like she hadn't expected to be caught in a mirror reflection of what she herself was doing. The four of us stood there in the moonlight, a strange quiet surrounding us. Then Nate broke it with a question none of us saw coming. Maybe we should just stop pretending. Stop guessing what everyone else is thinking and just talk. All of us. Now. That's when the second twist hit. Jess turned to him and said, "Okay. But let's not start with me or Al." She looked straight at Maddie. "I saw you two last night," Jess said. "Out here. By the fire." You touched his hand. You leaned in like it wasn't the first time. Maddie's face froze. Her mouth opened, then closed. "It wasn't like that," she said quickly. "We were just talking." "You're making it sound like what?" Jess cut in, calm but sharp. "Like something real is happening and none of us know how to handle it." The words were out there now, floating between us like sparks waiting for the wind to catch. I looked at Maddie, and for a second, I saw a flicker of something I didn't recognize in her eyes, regret, maybe. Or something deeper. Then Nate stepped forward, rubbing his hands together. "Look. None of us planned this. But something's happening. We can either run from it, or face it. Honestly." But before anyone could answer, Jess turned to me. "Tell them, Al, tell them what you told me on the beach." I hadn't told her anything. But then I saw it, her way out. She was pushing the weight toward me, maybe hoping it would force someone, anyone, to finally admit what we were all thinking. That something had already changed. And we couldn't undo it. I swallowed hard. Because now, I had to decide. Say nothing and let the silence eat us alive. Or speak, and let everything unravel. The silence between the four of us felt heavier than the ocean air. I looked at Jess, then Maddie, and finally at Nate. My heart was pounding. I didn't know what to say, but I knew this was the moment. Everything we'd been avoiding had finally cornered us. So I took a breath and said, "We've all been feeling it. This pull. It's not just in our heads. And maybe we didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. And now we need to decide what to do with it." Maddie looked at me, her eyes glossy but steady. "I didn't mean to let it happen," she said, her voice soft. But with Nate, I felt seen in a way I didn't expect. It scared me. I didn't cross a line, but I thought about it. Nate nodded, quietly. Same. Nothing physical happened. But emotionally? I was already halfway there. Jess stepped forward. And me? I've been holding back for months. Not from you, Nate. From myself. I think I've been confusing comfort with connection. I wanted something to shake us out of our rhythm. It hit all of us at once. This wasn't about betrayal. It was about what we were missing in ourselves. This trip, this tension, it exposed cracks we didn't even know were there. But just when we started breathing again, thinking maybe we'd just talk it through and walk away with clarity, Jess said something none of us expected. "What if this wasn't a mistake?" she asked. "What if this was a mirror? A way for us to see who we really are, and what we actually want?" That question changed everything. The next morning, bags were packed. Nate and Jess decided to take space from each other, figure things out separately. Maddie and we drove back in silence for the first hour. Then she reached over, took my hand, and said, "Maybe what we felt for them wasn't about them. Maybe it was about what we stopped showing each other." I looked at her, and for the first time in days, felt something settle. But the real twist came 2 weeks later. A message from Jess. Just 2 words. "Still thinking." 2 weeks after the trip, life slowly returned to normal. Or at least, something close to it. Maddie and I were back in our apartment, cooking dinner together again, going on walks, laughing more genuinely. There was a new kind of honesty between us, unspoken, but understood. That week in the Keys didn't destroy us. It exposed the parts of us we had stopped tending to, and weirdly, it brought us closer. Jess, though, stayed on my mind. Her message, "Still thinking," sat in my inbox like an open-ended question. I didn't reply right away. I let it sit. Because even though nothing had happened between us physically, the emotional connection was real. Deep down, I knew she had more to say. And maybe I did too. But some things don't need to be acted on to mean something. Sometimes they're just part of your story. Nate moved out of the place he shared with Jess. Last I heard, he took a job offer in Denver. We haven't spoken since, and maybe that's for the best. He and Maddie didn't cross any lines, but the bond they built made both of them reflect on what they wanted and what was missing. Maddie told me she doesn't regret it, not because she wanted something more with him, but because it helped her realize what she truly valued with me. I finally messaged Jess back. "Thinking's good," I wrote. "Some things are better understood than explained." She replied with a heart emoji and nothing else. And just like that, it felt finished. Not in a cold way. In a quiet, grown-up way. Sometimes the messiest moments in life are the ones that show you who you are. That trip forced us to be honest, to stop hiding behind routine and comfort. It cracked open everything we thought we knew about our relationships. And in the end, we didn't walk away broken, we walked away more awake. So yeah, we went on vacation with another couple. And what happened? It didn't just shock us, it changed us. If this story had you on edge, wondering what would happen next, I want to hear your thoughts. Would you have handled it differently? Did you expect the twist? Drop your reactions in the comments, and let me know if you'd be down for a sequel. There's always more to the story.